We want to turn now to some weather impacts we are seeing in our area right now. Of course, we know lots of folks are getting inundated with rain. We are getting a flooding report out of Gastonia right now, and as you can see, pretty active radar. James, our producer here, you've been looking at some of the information on this reported flooding in Gastonia. What can you tell us about this?
Vanessa, as we look at radar right now, we can see it's dry over Gastonia right now, but there's another batch of heavy rain coming up Interstate 85. So if I pause the radar right here, you can see it's right over here near Blacksburg and Grover, and this is coming up to the north and the east. Why this is so pertinent is because we can see just how heavy some of that rain is, Vanessa, and this is a look at the Welcome Center right there on I-85 on the South Carolina side. Visibility is really low, and the rain's coming down pretty good. Some earlier rain did prompt the National Weather Service to issue a flood advisory for this portion of Gastonia and Gaston County, and you can just see that the Catawba Creek at the East Hudson Boulevard, which is about 2 southwest miles from Gastonia, is at 11.46 feet. So Vanessa, that's considered minor flooding, and so if there's more rain on the way, it's certainly worth monitoring as we look live here from our Dallas camera.
Yeah, I mean, some views that are beautiful from up top, but I mean a pretty nasty view on the ground floor, if you will, based on what we just saw from that interstate camera. Important to note, folks, as you would expect with the heavy rain in some spots, we've got some potential for ponding on the roadways. We've got folks who are slowing down. We are seeing some pockets of slowdowns kind of around that state line area that James was just speaking of and showing us live. We've got some slowdowns around 85 in Gastonia. We know already a tricky area for slowdowns as is. It looks like we do have that official flooding report I'm seeing, James, you just pulled up for our folks regarding what the impacts could be for drivers.
Yeah, we saw that the Gaston County Emergency Management was communicating with the National Weather Service to give them some of these ground-based reports. So we can see that a ramp is flooded out on Interstate 85 northbound, one of 2 lanes closed if you're trying to merge onto US 321. This is in Gastonia, and it looks like this is going to be if you're going from I-85 north to US 321 south. We also did get a report from Gaston County that they had additional flooding, Vanessa, in the Robinson Road area of Dallas, in the town of Dallas, so not too far from right where our tower camera is situated.
Yeah.
If with the clouds the way they are, it's hard for us, as I was kind of zooming in and looking around trying to find some of these flood reports, but if the sky clears a little bit more, we might be able to get a better vantage point. But you know, I think as we just kind of start to see some of these pockets of heavier rain moving through today, we'll have to keep monitoring for little pockets of localized flooding like this one. The camera here will zoom in a minute. There's a little bit of a delay. I just pushed it into US 321, but it's a little bit northbound of where those flooding reports are occurring. It's hard to see through all the clouds.
Yeah, well, I mean, it really kind of illustrates the picture that up above the clouds, it looks like a really beautiful day, but alas, that is not where we are right now. So yeah, we just urge folks to be careful if you're going to be heading out in that area. Once again, US 321 near I-85 is where we have this reports of flooding with impacts to ramps in the area. As we mentioned, we've already got some slowdowns on the interstate itself as folks are, as we hope they would, slowing down. Hopefully folks would be increasing following distance. You've got your wipers on, you've got your headlights on as well. That is definitely a safety issue. You know, want to make sure that you are visible to other drivers by keeping those headlights on. Now, James, I see we just popped up a really interesting shot.
This is that look of 321 from our Dallas camera. So it's the same camera, Vanessa, that was showing us above the clouds before. I've tried to zoom down to find something on the ground, but you can see it's kind of obscured by the clouds coming through. So traffic on 321 is still moving fairly good in that Dallas area just north of Gastonia, but we do know from the North Carolina Department of Transportation that if you were to make your way back towards the interchange with 85, you could run into, again, some flooded roadways. So at best advice, as always, if you come across flooded roadways, turn around, don't drown. You won't know how deep that water can be. And again, when we look downstream, Vanessa, this is the South Carolina side of Interstate 85. The Welcome Center is right there on the left. Traffic is slowing down. The visibility is real poor, but look at just how marshy the grass is because we've had so much rain lately that as we get these little downpours coming through, there's really not a whole lot of place for that water to run off to.
Yeah, you can definitely see it there on the left-hand side of the screen. We've got that grass there right near the ramp, and yeah, lots of ponding that's happening, water collecting there in the ground. And we've been talking a lot about flooding lately. It feels like it's been a pretty busy season as far as flooding is concerned. Don't forget, folks, we had that South Mecklenburg County flooding and parts of South Carolina in our viewing area where we had folks that were dealing with some flooding that was, I want to say, kind of isolated to their area just based on how the rain was falling, and it just happened to hit them particularly hard. But, you know, people are kind of on alert probably for this, as we've been dealing not with just flooding in our area, but also other parts of the state. Kind of, you know, a headline we see resurfacing every week, it seems,
Yes.
you know, it's some part of our state.
Rinse and repeat, no pun intended. I've got a little bit of a break in the clouds, and hopefully there's just a slight delay from when I move the camera to we see it actually on our screen in front of us. But I was going to try to briefly show the US 321 area there of 85 in Gastonia while I had a break in the clouds, but
Well,
still waiting for it to zoom in.
I was going to say, while you were working on that, I noticed too, like as we go back and forth, and we'll go back and forth between these shots, folks, as we're talking, if you look at the amount of water that the vehicles on 85 are pushing out of the way, I think that really paints, you know, a visual there for you of how much water is collecting on the roadway, specifically when the semi trucks, you look at that.
Yeah, wow, look at that.
That's a lot of roadway
Yeah, if you were
water.
driving alongside that car and you got that splash up, that could certainly be a problem. I do want to remind folks that this camera is on the South Carolina side of Interstate 85. So if you live in, say, Cleveland County, this is just to the south
Yeah.
of you. Like if you drive across the border to go to the fireworks place or something that's right there across the state line. The Welcome Center, I think, is on the left-hand side of the screen. But you can certainly see, that's a good observation, Vanessa, about the amount of water that is pooled on the roadway there.
And the other thing that I guess that folks will be curious to know about is, you know, how long the rain will last, because it does sound like, unfortunately, it could be a soggy day, not only today, but maybe tomorrow as well, I believe is what we're seeing.
Yeah, and it's not
from
even
our weather
continuous.
impact.
It's like on again, off
Yeah.
again, and it's not even localized to just us. So we know Charleston, South Carolina had a flash flood warning earlier today. Carlene's here in the room with us, and she is our Charleston expert. She'll tell you that it rains there on a sunny day, but they were certain enough flooding earlier this morning.
Yeah. I mean, Charleston, I mean, we've mentioned this before, you know, in some of our weather chats, especially as it pertains to flooding. Charleston, definitely an area that, you know, the folks there, when I got deployed for hurricane coverage, I believe it was Ian a couple years back, and I was talking with folks around downtown and just outside, and they were basically saying, yep, this is a familiar situation for us. You know, it could rain a little bit and we'd flood. And of course, you know, when you have major event like a hurricane that's coming in the area, that will be even more of an impact.